The world has been covered with concrete. No sign of life around. We've surrounded ourselves with an industrial wasteland. This was the setting of the story I wanted to tell, the film I wanted to make. It was 1984. I was 21, a student, and wanted to shake up the world. I wanted to throw something onto the movie screen, a vision of the beast we created. This blind progress of industry, its towering structures and its underbelly, where God and His creation has no part. I was attending community college. Across the parking lot from the film department was the Flint Center, where Steve Jobs was announcing the new Apple Macintosh computer. For me, technology came with large warnings. The industrial world had already been failing us, spewing filth into the air, spoiling rivers, nature covered over. I had finally made some friends, a group of friends, creative types, comic book artists, musicians, filmmakers. I had turned 18 and then 21 and still didn't feel I was becoming the man I needed to be. Someone strong, articulate, relaxed, firm in his beliefs and thinking. Instead, I was docile and nervous and held most thoughts in my head, editing those thoughts as I spoke to others. I was sort of disembodied. I was mostly ill at ease and lacked spontaneity and genuine expression. Films and filmmaking had to be the ticket. The career had to make the man. Me and my family were working-class Mexican-American people. Mostly we took on jobs in order to make money. I had my job after high school, driving all around Silicon Valley, delivering printed circuit boards to the various companies in the area. It was a job, but a career for me was not just some job. Art making for me was a vocation, not so different than a religious vocation. You were in it for life, and the work required contemplation and a commitment to truth and the bigger truths. I decided to work during the days while taking classes at night, which mostly meant the school's film department. It was our little creative community. We were students opening our homes to each other, and we knew that this was the time to make our mistakes and take risks and make those films that we might never have a chance to make as professionals. Art and film became the way that I found to speak, to say something. My friends and I loved to talk film and art, but when it came to deeper things, inner troubles, hard feelings, wishes of the heart, where friends would talk about their personal lives, I only kept silent. There seemed to be a barrier where I held these things inside, hidden, within myself. If I was to try to really show up and speak my mind, there was shame, the feeling of heat, as if an interrogating spotlight was upon me. My inner critic would be telling me that I'm doing it all wrong. So instead, I talked shop, talked ideas, or stayed silent. The deeper me would have to be on the screen, and I would often get anxious with heart beating hard as I showed my work. Friends of mine were in punk bands. Punk was the music in the background of our lives. It informed us. The shock value of punk was similar to what I was trying to do with surrealism, an art movement with anti-fascist goals. I was a fan of the surrealists, and I knew that part of what a surrealist can do, like punk, is upset and shake the minds of complacent, mainstream thinking people. The mainstream was an enemy of sorts. The mainstream was worldly and sheep-like, the masses aimlessly devouring the life around them, the beast. My friends and I would ponder whether joining the mainstream was selling out. We were students, and would never have the freedom we now had to throw that image onto the screen that would not fly in Hollywood. On one hand, there was shock value, but there was also some kind of catharsis happening. In a way, I had to make these images. Somewhere, it was within me. The truth was, I didn't fully know exactly what I was doing with filmmaking. Films, they say, are about telling stories, but I was attracted to filmmakers like Maya Deren, who dealt with a dream world. And in editing class, I was introduced to the energy of Sergei Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin, and I would often start telling a story and then drop it and make something purely visual, leaning on the spectacle of strange imagery that came from my imagination. I was career-minded, but I was also full of questions. Was I merely pursuing art as a way of connecting to others? Was there a better way to connect? Something new was brewing inside of me, a new energy, something welling up from deep in my body and making its way into the light of my mind. Several years into school, and I felt ready to put all that I absorbed and believed in into a film. My films up to this point were built on the storyboards. I would imagine the blank screen and the impact of those first images as they flashed before an audience. Some images pop forward, while others subside and go away. Once the storyboards were complete, I would move toward production. Films can be about building a world, and the world I wanted to build, all life would have to be removed. And I went about designing and putting together a film set in my family's backyard. I had the idea of painting and stacking my dad's old fruit crates against the barbecue fire pit and extending the set with the old technique of glass painting, where you paint on glass and match the live set with a painted scene, which becomes the background through forced perspective. One day, while driving from school, I was stopped at some train tracks, and a mysterious-looking man was walking along them. There was a lone wolf feeling about him that I guess I related to, that would also inspire my character. I found a funny man named Kevin who would visit the film department and asked if he would act in my film. I set up my 16mm camera and filmed the old black trains that made their way up and down the San Francisco Peninsula. A year later, they were discontinued and replaced with chrome trains. I would drive down to San Jose or up to San Francisco and shoot some of the old industrial buildings that were sooty and falling apart. I was guided by what I called visual rhymes, where one visual idea or energy matches the energy and idea of the next image. So the flicker of the trains going by rhyme with the flicker of the spinning Zoetrope. For me, art making has always shared the realm of dreams. You dip into the unconscious and pull up nuggets of emotional imagery. And then, as with dreams, you step back and start realizing what your inner self is saying. There is the artwork, the Zoetrope strip. There is the artist in the Zoetrope. And there is the robot-like creature that mocks him. A manifestation of the artist's self-doubt. In dreams, it's said that all the parts are reflections of the self. I am the man isolated. I am the concrete world that boxes me in. I am the train that passes me by. I am the creature of self-doubt that laughs at me. I leaned on art as a way of connecting for so long, I was wondering whether the whole thing was actually ego-driven. But what else did I have going for me? It was the main way I found to connect, to speak, to go deep. Island Zoetrope became the title of the film. Island, because I felt isolated. Zoetrope, because art is a way of expressing, of connecting. It happened in the Forum building at school. The class was called Intercultural Studies, taught by Mr. Moreno, a teacher with charisma and a student following. My friends had been telling me I had to take his class, and I had to do the final, where you get up in front of the classroom and talk about yourself. My friend Jim said it was life-changing, so I took the class. On finals week, I got up to do the presentation on myself, and I told Mr. Moreno that I wanted to show my film, Island Zoetrope. So the lights went out, and the film rolled, and my heart beat hard. The film ended, the lights came on, and I got up in front of the class and asked with a smile, "Any questions?" People talked about the film, of course, and about me as an artist, and asked about how I did this or that. Then, to my surprise, the conversation suddenly went to my shyness. The question was asked, "Why are you shy?" I said that I had come from a big family. This was my usual thought about my shyness. And I said, I came from a big family, and as I was one of the youngest, it was hard to get anything in. Then this one woman said, I came from a big family, but I feel that that was what made me outgoing. I'm a little stumped on that one, and think about it, when Mr. Moreno leans forward, as if trying to pick at something, and says, "Do you know that shyness is fear of people? Why are you afraid of people?" I'd never heard it put that way before. I always thought that shyness was simply a character trait, one that I hated in myself. I don't remember what I said in reply, but something he said rang true. After the presentation was over, the students took a little time to write some kind of observation about me. Mr. Moreno handed me the stack of papers, and after school I drove to Half Moon Bay, where I sometimes liked to walk the beach, or sit and write, or contemplate. I brought the papers the students wrote about me. I sat in the sand and read them through. Some students seemed to like that I was an artist, but what stuck and bothered me were the writings from students who were commenting on my shyness. I hated that. I didn't want others to see the flaw in me. I set the papers aside, and the words, "Why are you afraid of people?" kept entering my mind as I laid on the sand. Why are you afraid of people? I closed my eyes, and then an answer suddenly entered my mind. I was afraid of my dad. When I was young, I had been afraid of my father. There was some unspoken distance. In the following days, I became flooded with memories, as if a door to an old dark room had been opened, and I decided to look in, and found things long forgotten slowly being revealed. I was pulled toward the whole realm of emotional recovery from that day on. I first went to self-help books, and then I started bringing up my childhood to my parents. There were arguments, and we all raised our voices. I was confronting my dad. My mom was defending him. We quoted the Bible to back up our positions. I was later sorry that I pushed them so hard, and that what they mainly perceived was me telling them they were bad parents. As for me, I was raising my voice and engaging and taking risks with the two people I loved most. Finally, I was able to open up to my friends about my personal life. Something was shifting. Best of all, I was getting my heart back and could cry once again. It seemed 10 years since I had had a good cry. I had made that connection between childhood distress and the trauma that I was dealing with. When the connection was made, a major shift happened, where I no longer saw me as having a problem, a character flaw. I suddenly felt power in the fact that this problem actually had a cause, a beginning, a possible solution. There was a problem, but the problem wasn't me. It wouldn't be long till I made the connection that these things are generational. I was now the adult, an uncle, with the young people in my life, and my father was the adult when I was young. And when he was a child, he was raised by the adults around him. Habits and behaviors ripple through the generations, until one decides to break the cycle. The 1980s were coming to an end, and friends were starting to move on to other schools and other places. Eventually, I could see it was time for me to move on as well. At 23, I moved from the home I long lived in. I was trying to shake up the world, but to my surprise, what got shaken up was me.